How did Jezebel die? How did Jezebel die? Exploring the demise of one of the most controversial figures in the Bible, Jezebel. Understand the significance, symbolism, and historical context of her death. How did Jezebel die? A controversial figure in biblical history, origin and early life. Born into royalty, Jezebel was the daughter of the Phoenician king Ethbaal, who was also a priest of the pagan god Baal. From her early days, Jezebel was immersed in a culture deeply at odds with the Hebrew tradition. This cultural clash would later intensify, setting the stage for the dramatic narrative that unfolds in the Bible. Jezebel's influence and power. Married to King Ahab of Israel, Jezebel wielded significant influence during her husband's reign. Not one to be a silent queen, she took an active role in affairs of the state. Unfortunately, this influence was often applied to promoting the worship of Baal, thereby leading Israel away from the worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel. Event. Biblical reference. Description. Ahab marries Jezebel. 1 Kings 16:31. Ahab, king of Israel, marries Jezebel, a princess of Sidon, cementing a political alliance between Israel and Phoenicia. This event brought Baal worship into the kingdom of Israel. Jezebel promotes Baal worship. 1 Kings 16:32-33. Jezebel encourages her husband Ahab to build a temple and an altar to Baal in Samaria, leading Israel further into idolatry. Elijah predicts drought. 1 Kings 17:1. As a result of Ahab and Jezebel's idolatry, Elijah the prophet predicts a severe drought, symbolizing God's judgment on Israel. Jezebel kills prophets of God. 1 Kings 18:4. Jezebel seeks to eliminate worship of God in Israel by killing his prophets, while supporting the prophets of Baal. Elijah's victory on Mount Carmel. 1 Kings 18:20-40. In a contest against the prophets of Baal, Elijah calls down fire from heaven, proving the power of God. The prophets of Baal are executed, infuriating Jezebel. Jezebel threatens Elijah. 1 Kings 19:1-2. After Elijah's victory, Jezebel threatens his life, leading Elijah to flee into the wilderness. Jezebel orchestrates Naboth's murder. 1 Kings 21:1-16. Jezebel orchestrates the murder of Naboth to seize his vineyard for Ahab, showing her manipulative and ruthless nature. Elijah predicts Jezebel's death. 1 Kings 21:23. After Jezebel's role in Naboth's death, Elijah prophesies that she will be eaten by dogs, a prophecy that ultimately comes to pass. Jehu executes Jezebel. 2 Kings 9:30-37. Jehu, appointed by God to wipe out Ahab's dynasty, has Jezebel thrown from a window. Her body is left to be eaten by dogs, fulfilling Elijah's prophecy. Each of these events provides critical context to Jezebel's life and the disastrous impact her reign had on the kingdom of Israel. 15 remarkable women Bible characters, their stories and impact. Bible, women. Notorious deeds of Jezebel. Among the most notorious acts attributed to Jezebel is the incident involving the vineyard of Naboth. When Naboth refused to sell his vineyard to King Ahab, Jezebel orchestrated a plot resulting in Naboth's unjust execution. This act was one of the main triggers that set the stage for her ultimate downfall. Biblical reference. Evil deeds of Jezebel. 1 Kings 18:4. Jezebel ordered the execution of God's prophets during a time when Baal worship was prevalent. She was a strong advocate for idolatry, directly opposing the worship of the true God. 1 Kings 21:5-15. Jezebel orchestrated the false accusation and execution of Naboth, an innocent man, in order to seize his vineyard for her husband, King Ahab. She manipulated the legal and religious systems for her own gain. 1 Kings 21:25. Jezebel greatly influenced her husband, King Ahab, and was the driving force behind his wicked reign. Ahab did more evil in the sight of the Lord, incited by Jezebel. 2 Kings 9:22. Jezebel was heavily involved in witchcraft and sorcery. Her witchcraft was so influential that it was noted by Jehu at the time of her death. 2 Kings 9:30-37. Jezebel attempted to use her charm and seductive powers to control Jehu, who was ordained by God to end her life. This act can be seen as manipulation and the misuse of power. Revelation 2:20. In the New Testament, Jezebel's name is used metaphorically to describe a woman in the Thyatira church who misleads people into sexual immorality and food offered to idols. This symbolic use of her name shows how her historical actions became synonymous with evil and idolatry. Jezebel is often considered one of the most villainous characters in the Bible. She is seen as a symbol of manipulation, idolatry, and wickedness. The prophecy of Jezebel's death. Elijah's prophecy. The prophet Elijah foretold Jezebel's death as divine retribution for her idolatry and murders, including that of Naboth. According to the prophecy, Jezebel was to die a violent death, with her body to be eaten by dogs, a deeply humiliating end by ancient standards. The symbolism of the prophecy of Jezebel's death is rich with symbolism. It marked the divine judgment not only for Jezebel's personal sins but also symbolized the end of Baal worship in Israel. The manner of her death, to be eaten by dogs, was a potent symbol of disgrace, indicative of the total annihilation of her legacy. How did Jezebel die? The tragic fall. The betrayal of Jehu. When Jehu revolted against her son, King Yoram, he came to Jezreel where Jezebel resided. Seeing Jehu approach, Jezebel applied makeup and dressed in her royal attire, potentially in a final act of defiance. Jezebel's final moments upon Jehu's arrival, Jezebel challenged him from her window. In response, Jehu commanded her eunuchs to throw her from the window, resulting in her death. The aftermath. Fulfilling the prophecy after Jezebel's death, Jehu entered the palace to eat and drink. Only after his meal did he order Jezebel's body to be buried. By the time they went to fulfill this order, dogs had eaten her corpse, leaving only the skull, feet, and the palms of her hands, thereby fulfilling Elijah's prophecy. Historical context of Jezebel's death. Power dynamics of ancient Israel. To fully comprehend Jezebel's fate, we must first delve into the complex power dynamics that were in play during her time. The kingdom of Israel was in a state of religious flux, with the traditional Hebrew faith being at odds with the imported Phoenician pantheon that Jezebel championed. Her death marked a turning point in this religious struggle, symbolizing the triumph of the monotheistic worship of Yahweh. Father, grandfather, minister, missionary, deacon, elder, author, welcome to our family. View all posts.